Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic. People of Reddit, what stupid rule at your work /school backfired beautifully? Zero tolerance ended shortly after a bully got thrown through a window because if I'm getting suspended for defending myself I'm gonna make it worth my while. Mad respect to the kid who tossed their bully through a window. That kind of thing happens more than you'd think. When you bully the fat kid who is always carrying 40 more pounds than you, don't be surprised when he picks your 40-pound ass up and throws you like a oodly shot put. Back in 2014 our made a rule people couldn't go to other buildings. We had 3 buildings within a block of each other. All 3 had shipping areas and the warehouse employees had to go to each building to work. We were told to stay at one building. I mentioned we ship out of all 3 who is going to do the work. The genius said oh it'll be taken care of. Next day $500,000 shipment didn't go out. The following day we have a meeting. Why didn't you ship this? 2 days ago we were told to stay in our building and someone would take care of it. The rule was quickly changed. Okay, but why didn't they want people to go to other buildings? They were trying to keep departments segregated. The lady was a control freak. She didn't want anyone talking to anyone else. Required every employee to use electronic time clocks to punch in /out for work including lunch. Punching in late or leaving early would cause your pay to be docked and getting a discipline letter. Multiple people wanted to sabotage the clocks, cut the cords, etc., but wiser heads prevailed. Everyone arrived several minutes early and left late, every single day, to avoid getting into trouble. Unfortunately, this created unimpeachable evidence of hours worked. The employer had to pay out thousands of dollars in overtime the first month. The clocks disappeared exactly 5 weeks after they were installed with no notification. I worked in a call center and we had a similar clock system. Except we were allowed to arrive 5 minimum early then get on the phones at their scheduled time. One girl figured out they would pay for those 5 minutes. She started clocking in earlier and earlier until she was arriving an hour early and sat around for an hour every day. 5 extra hours of overtime every week, for close to a year or more until she quit, with one in management catching wind. One of the first jobs I had, as a trainee in a big corporation's office, my supervisor noticed I came in a few minutes late once and told me off for it. I did arrive at 9:03 or what, but a few more minutes and my computer was booted up and I started working. Same day, close to 9:30, I saw several co-workers coming out of the kitchen with coffee still in their hands and chatting, getting to their desks and just then booting their computers. Boss didn't say a word. So I took up joining my co-workers for a 30 minimum coffee break every single morning for the 2 or 3 months I continued to work there. I had one job where I would get there about 10 to 15 minutes early every single day because I took the bus and the buses ran near perfectly. I was usually working 10 minutes before my start time so I didn't think it was too big a deal that I left 2 minutes early to catch my butt home. Wrong. My boss saw me leaving once at 4:28 to get my 4:33 bus and she chewed me out for leaving early. You could show up 30 minutes early and they'd ignore you, but if you tried to leave 1 minute early they'd write you up. Bullshit too, because we weren't hourly and my work was getting done every day and on time. And like your place, they didn't care if you showed up at 7:59 and hung out in the kitchen for 30 minutes or took a smoke break at 8:37 as long as you stayed until your end of day. They want the appearance. Every shift, there's a quota we need to fulfill. And then, even if you do fulfill it, you have to keep working until your 8 hours are up. Cue everyone speeding for 4 hours, having a 3-hour lunch /coffee break, then slowly moving their ass for an hour. No rule about us taking necessary breaks if we're still capable of reaching the quota. Now we're allowed to stop once we're done. Geez, a 3-hour lunch break is one of the most amazing things I've heard. It gets really fucking boring. For about 3 months in my last job, I would have about 40 minutes work to do per 7.5-hour shift. There's only so much time you can kill in an office building. When COVID started, our boss demanded that our entire team sit in on group Zoom calls, even if the topics on the agenda didn't have anything to do with their roles. She felt it would build team unity. Productivity dropped, negative Google reviews came in, staff became more stressed. When she demanded answers on the next Zoom call, one of my co-workers bluntly said, "Well, I would reply to this woman's voicemail, but I'm stuck on this Zoom call." After a round of needless layoffs at my old company, one of the C-level people had us on a call asking why things weren't getting done. One of my co-workers said, I think the person who would have done that particular job no longer works here. And that's the right way to deal with the bullshit of companies trying to cut jobs. Don't pick up the slack, don't point out the gaps, just keep doing the job you always do until catastrophic failure hits the company. We cover for our shitty companies all the time and that's why they treat us like shit. Okay, that's a minor case of malicious compliance. Not really. If you're required to be on Zoom, you can't be having a conversation with someone else, because if you do, you're not on Zoom. I worked at Starbucks for like 5+ years before and during undergrad, and at one point our district manager thought it was a good idea to implement a just say yes policy, where we literally weren't allowed to tell the customer number. Lasted for about 3 months, and in that 3 months our unaccounted product and waste went up over 300% because when the post didn't have a way to punch in a customer request we had to just do it anyways. We also got complaints from stores in surrounding districts because they had angry customers who were requesting things that were against local food service code, and told them that we did it for them at our store. I knew exactly how that policy was going to play out and I just laughed every time management was freaking out about the problems it was causing. Give me all the money in the cash register and make me a free iced coffee. Yes. We shall not deny a customer even the most ridiculous request. Edit, screwed up the line lol. I am the one who lives closest to work, so if the building alarm goes off overnight, I'm first on the list to get the call from the alarm company. It used to be that if we had good reason to believe the alarm was not an actual break-in we could tell them not to summon the police and ignore the alarm. I can access the building cameras from home. The most common alarm was the cleaning crew who were always messing up the disarming. Then a sister site ignored an alarm that turned out to be an actual break-in, and the facilities director decided that no matter what, if there was an alarm we should have the alarm company summon the police, then go to the building, get the police all clear, and reset the alarm. This was a pain in the ass but rare enough, and I lived literally 2 minutes away. Then we contracted for the alarm company to come in and replace all of our panels and sensors. It was a nightmare process that ultimately ended up taking months, and the whole time there were phantom alarms, sometimes multiple times a night. Each time I had to go out in the middle of the night, I'd prepare the required report, send it to the facilities director, and request to go back to the old process. Each time he said no, we couldn't afford to miss a potential real break-in. After about 3 weeks of this nonsense, I was due for some time off. I was going out of town, and the protocol for that was for me to ignore calls from the alarm company, so they moved to the next person on the list, which happened to be the facilities director. In the 5 days I was off, I must have ignored at least 4 overnight calls that all would have gone to him next. Then suddenly, nothing. When I got back I was informed that for the duration of the alarm update, we just weren't going to arm the building at all. So much for can't afford to risk a break-in. Every manager seems to love just call somebody in as their solution to every problem until they're the person who actually has to wake their ass up in the middle of the night and go in. I had a director level guy one time say everything is the easiest thing in the world for the guy that doesn't have to do it. When someone in a meeting was trying to talk about how trivial some non-trivial work was. It really stuck with me. The bottom floor of my secondary school was a square that had corridor all the way around. After some incident where a kid got knocked over, they implemented a one-way system. Unfortunately, they were very strict on enforcing it. If you accidentally walked past your class, you couldn't just turn around. They seemed very proud of their new rule until everyone started showing up late for class because they had to do extra laps of the bottom floor. That's ridiculous. My daughter is experiencing this with COVID one-way rules. They are only actually in school once or twice a week between snow and hybrid, so none of them know where the hell they are going, and if they miss, they have to go around again. A long while back, but my school banned the color pink because a bunch of students were wearing it one October and they thought it was a gang thing. It was for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. The rule didn't go well for them. My principal banned pink silicone bracelets. They were being sold in town to raise money for breast cancer. 6 months later she had to have chemo to treat her breast cancer. It's not really funny, but it is kind of ironic. Edit, yes, she survived. I still see her around town on occasion, full remission, back to better health than before. The gang hysteria seems to be a repeat offender in this thread. I've heard of tattoos and things being associated with gangs back in the day, but the only time I can recall a gang wearing color-coded uniforms is in the movie Grease. A place I used to work had a rule that executive-level staff needed to be contactable when on leave, so they had a section on the leave form for the address of where you'd be staying and a contact number. Some knuckle shuffler in our decided it applied to all staff and the shenanigans began. People would put down the address and phone number of sex shops, sports grounds, medical clinics. I gave the latitude and longitude of the place I was going camping and the UHF frequency channel my radio would be tuned to. My company used to be a small startup. In my first year I was the project manager and architect for a global system rollout. I put in my vacation days for Burning Man 6 months out, in February, and my PTO was approved. Then a few months later, June, my boss, who had been head of the IT department, got a new boss, new head of IT. With a month to go until Burning Man, the new head of IT told me that my project rollout was too important for me to be contactable at all and that I would need to take a satellite phone to Burning Man or my vacation would be cancelled. We were still 3 months from go live, but he decided that we were at a critical moment that I had to be available for. However, neither my boss or the new head of IT wanted to carry out the daily $18/minute satellite phone calls with me, probably because they knew it was violating some labor law. So they got one of the guys in the London office to call me in the Black Rock Desert each day. I said I wouldn't take the calls before 1 p.m., which was 9 p.m. for our man in London. Every day he called he had a few beers, and didn't give a shit about project updates, he just wanted to know what parties I'd been to and what art I'd seen. I once had a manager tell us we couldn't hang out with each other outside of work unless we invited everyone. No. So that's what happened to the kid who never got invited to parties. I was asked to do that once. Fire Road H, Indian Township, me. Good fucking luck finding me. Didn't occur to me to give what frequency my VHF radio would have been on.